Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred. And I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and yeah, it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. And a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really excited to keep the ball rolling. And it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Hey everybody, it's Alfred Parsar Jr. back with another Metropolitan Report. And before we begin today's report, just got to say, if you like what you've been seeing so far in our coverage of the 2025 New York Mets season, be sure to go below, hit the subscribe button. That way, every time we have a new episode or we upload some type of new content, you'll be notified and be one of the first ones to know. Again, if you like what you see, you want to interact with the content, leave a comment, hit subscribe. You'll get a notification every time we go live. But on today's report, ladies and gentlemen, we are a little over 24 hours away from opening day. Of course, that would be tomorrow, Thursday, March 27th, when the Mets open their season on the road to take on the Houston Astros. But before we can get to opening day, we got to wrap up spring training. Camp is officially over. Uh, a couple of roster decisions have not officially been made, but we'll go over that. We're going to go over the starting rotation, the bullpen, the lineup, and the bench. But before we get to all that good stuff, two notes coming out of camp. First off, we got to talk about Edwin Diaz, the Mets closer. We haven't spoken much about Diaz throughout spring training because, of course, his roster position was never in jeopardy. He's not injured, so Edwin Diaz, there was nothing really to report on. However, there have been reports all throughout the spring that Diaz's velocity has topped out at 95 miles per hour. Should that be a cause for concern? Well, let's talk about it. Edwin Diaz, of course, the Mets closer. He was the MLB league leader in saves back in 2018 when he was a member of the Seattle Mariners. Outside of the 2023 season, where he did not pitch at all because he broke his leg in the World Baseball Classic during a celebration of all things for Team Puerto Rico, Edwin Diaz, outside of his first season as a Met in 2019, has been pretty dominant. Edwin Diaz has been known to have a four-seam fastball that has reached that has been known to reach 102 miles per hour on occasion, but usually minimum he was always a safe bet to hit 100 miles per hour on the speed gun when he threw his four seamer. But in spring training, yeah, the velocity is just not there. It was noted by several scouts in attendance, and not just Met scouts, but scouts from the opposing team trying to get some tape on some guys. And again, this spring training in the Grapefruit League, where the Mets are located in that part of Florida, they play the St. Louis Cardinals, the Houston Astros, and the Washington Nationals more than anybody. But the scout was what team he was from, what organization he was from is unnamed. But a couple of those scouts realized that Diaz, every time he threw a fastball, it would not go past 95 miles per hour, with the exception of one or two fastballs, which went 96. Now, for a guy who typically can throw that pitch at 100 miles per hour and even been known to go up to 102 miles per hour, 95, a 5 to 7 mile per hour dip is a bit concerning. Typically, when guys later in their careers lose velocity, they gain control, they gain break. Edwin Diaz's best non fastball pitch is his slider. His slider has always been effective when it's been low and away from the batter, especially a right hand batter. Of course, Diaz right handed on a righty righty matchup. I'm a bit concerned. I'm not going to lie. Edwin Diaz has never been the type of pitcher where he flexes control, he flexes great breaking pitches. He has lived and died on that four seam fastball. Again, of course, he can throw a two seamer, he can throw a slider, but again, for a guy in just a season to go from 100 consistently to topping out at 95, I know it's just spring training now. Also, to take into effect how he looked in the spring, he made four appearances, three and a thirds innings of work, struck out five, but did have an ERA of 5.40. And that the fastball velocity issue did rear its head in spring training. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Diaz enters the season as the Mets closer. Of course, you know, the closer role, the closer is going to get into high leverage situations. So anytime that Diaz is called upon, the game is essentially on the line. The Mets either have to be in a tied game or they have to be up no more than 3 runs to for Diaz to see action. But I don't know, unless he can learn better control and he can learn break at this point in his career. I'm not 100% certain what to expect out of Edwin Diaz. Will we get the Edwin Diaz that we've come to know that's been dominant? Or are we going to get the Edwin Diaz that got here in 2019 and got batted around fairly often? It remains to be seen. Diaz has been more reliable than he's been bad in a Mets uniform in his Mets career. So we'll see what happens. But I am a bit nervous, especially with, again, a more than 5 mile per hour drop off. If we go to the one spring appearance he had this season where he looked really bad, it was his first spring appearance where he only pitched a third of an inning and gave up 2 runs on 2 hits, walked one, struck out none. That was back on March 6th. However, the rest of the spring, in the other 3 appearances he made, scoreless baseball. However, despite pitching scoreless innings in those other 3 appearances, he's been bitten by the walk bug. Uh, March 9th, he walked 2 batters, struck out 3. However, he walked the first 2 batters, struck out the next 3, got himself out of trouble. Uh, those are the only 2 walks that he surrendered all spring, and then the last 2 appearances he looked like his old self. But again, the fastball topping out at 95 miles per hour, Diaz, he's got to find something else again. I don't know if it's control or it's break, but Edwin Diaz, I'm going to stay positive on this one, hoping that he can return to form at some point this season. But that is a cause for concern that all throughout the spring he couldn't go past 95 miles per hour. But then some people will say, well, you know, it's spring training. Guys don't want to show all their stuff or potentially, throw hard and blow their arm out. Of course, Jacob deGrom in his last season in New York back in 2022 got hurt in spring training, throwing, ironically, over 100-mile-per-hour fastballs that sidelined him up until the summer of that season. But again, I'm going to hold out hope. I've always been a big believer and a big proponent in Edwin Diaz, and I'm hoping and I'm thinking that even if he does lose a step velocity-wise, he'll be able to be the solid contributor and the lockdown closer that we've known him to be. One last note coming out of camp before we talk about regular season stuff. Alexander Canario, the outfielder that the Mets acquired for cash from the Cubs in several weeks ago at the end of February, early March, he's the odd man out, despite having a solid spring. Canario hit 306 this spring, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs. He did have one stolen base and an OPS of 1.030. Solid, impressive numbers again. Regular season, he's had 2 cups of coffee with the Cubs. Lifetime through 2 seasons, 25 at bats, 280 average. So Canario has proven in 2 very small sample sizes that he can hit, and he proved again in the spring. He had a great spring. Those are the numbers you want to see in the spring. However, he's the odd man out. Canario has no more minor league options, meaning if the Mets don't have him on their opening day roster, which is tomorrow, then Canario's got to go through waivers, and somebody is going to pick this kid up. I do not imagine that if the Mets say, hey, Canario, we don't have a spot for you, they send him through waivers. I can't picture one of the other 29 MLB teams passing on this kid. Somebody's going to pick him up. And again, the Cubs put him on waivers because they picked up Justin Turner. They needed to make room. They didn't want to let him go, but they did. The Mets put in a bid and they sent the Cubs some cash and they picked up Canario. Same thing is about to happen for the Mets right now. They're gonna have to let Canario go because that outfield is too crowded. I guess they just wanted to see what he looked like. Of course, Starling Marte entered camp hurt. Brandon Nimmo came into camp hurt. So there was a possibility they were going to need a backup outfielder. Of course, the Mets on their roster are loaded at outfield. Nimmo's healthy. Marte now healthy, even though he'll be a DH. More on that later. Jesse Winker, Tyrone Taylor, Brandon Nimmo, as we mentioned, Juan Soto, Jose Siri. So a bunch of guys ahead of Canario. Again, Canario, great numbers this spring. He tore it up. 306 average, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 1.030 OPS. This kid has a bright future. He's only 24 years old. And again, he's proven he can hit. Again, I get it. 25 career at bats, but that 280 average consistently speaks for itself. And again, if he's not going to stick around with the Mets, Canario pretty much had an audition for the other 29 teams. He's going to get picked up, and we'll see him in major league action at some point for somebody this season. Sadly, it won't be the Mets. Again, they picked him up thinking Brandon Nimmo's knee soreness or Starling Marte's injuries were going to sideline them for the opening day roster, but both of those guys have recovered. They'll be in Houston ready to go suited up tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. But I just want to say Canario had a great spring training. Him not making the team is just him being a victim of circumstance, and I really would have liked to have seen him stick around. But again, when you've got Brandon Nimmo, Tyrone Taylor, Jesse Winker, Juan Soto, Jose Siri, all ahead of you, there's no room. And Starling Marte, there's just no room. But I do wish Alexander Canario the best, and this is not the last we've seen of Canario in the majors. He just happened to be the odd man out. But moving on, folks, tomorrow afternoon, 4:10 p.m., the New York Mets open the 2025 MLB season up against those Houston Astros on the road. I don't think they call it Minute Maid anymore, but whatever that stadium is now known as. But the Astros hosting the Mets, and it's going to be, well, Daikin Park, as I'm being told by one of our good people over. Thanks, Miss Betty. As I'm being told by Miss Betty, Daikin Park, the home of the Houston Astros, they're going to host the Mets 4:10 p.m. opening day. And let's go over the roster. The opening day roster. Now, again, a couple of spots not confirmed, but I'm going off of what I've seen being reported of who's been cut already. And, just process of elimination. So here we go. We're going to start with the position players. Starting catcher, opening day is going to be Luis Torrens. Of course, Francisco Alvarez starting the season on the IL. So that opens up room for Torrens to be the starter until Alvarez comes back. Of course, Pete Alonso going to start at first. Pete, a friend of the show, we're always rooting for. Well, I mean, we're rooting for all the Mets, but you especially, Pete. Luis Angel Acuna is going to be the starting second baseman as long as the opposing starting pitcher is a left-hander, which in this case, the Astros are sending out Framber Valdez. He is a left-handed starting pitcher. So Acuna will start at second. More on that later of who starts against right-handers. Francisco Lindor, no question, he's going to start at short. Mark Vientos manning third. Then we go to the outfield. Up the middle is Jose Siri in center field. Brandon Nimmo is in left. And Juan Soto, El Pacheco, he's going to start in right field. And of course, Starling Marte will be your designated hitter. Going to the bench. The Mets 4 bench spots this season. As we cue up the graphic, starting from left to right. Brett Baty, who had a heck of a spring. This is probably going to be his last chance to show the Mets organization that he can stick at the major league level. He's going to be the starting second baseman when the opposing starting pitcher is a right-hander. Of course, Baty bats left. Then we have Tyrone Taylor. Next to him, the backup catcher, Hayden Senger, who will no longer be working at Trader Joe's for the time being, as he will be making his major league, big league roster debut. He is a rookie, no major league experience, but he beat out Jackson Reitz for that backup catcher spot. The only sad part is, as we mentioned last week, once Francisco Alvarez comes back, Senger is going back to Syracuse to go to AAA and possibly back to Trader Joe's when he's not playing baseball. And then Jesse Winker, who is going to platoon DH with Starling Marte. My opinions on both the starters and the bench for the position players, no issue. Again, Hayden Senger, real feel-good story, a guy that you'd want to root for just because of his background. Again, in the offseason, works at Trader Joe's, been in the Mets minor league system since 2018. It was about time he gets a shot. The only sad part is, again, once Alvarez comes back, Torrens goes back to the bench, and Senger will be on the first bus to Syracuse. I like the platoon of Acuna and Baty. Both guys they want to give chances to. Again, if it's a lefty pitcher, Acuna is going to start second. If it's a righty pitcher, Baty's going to start second. Both guys had a tremendous camp. Baty really showed out, and that's what saved his position on the team, was his incredible spring that he had. And of course, Winker and Taylor, part of that outfield platoon there. And of course, Winker will be platooning with Starling Marte for the designated hitter spot. And again, everywhere else you look, again, the Mets really deep at outfield, with Winker being able to play in the outfield, Taylor being able to play in the outfield, and then you have that trio that's going to start of Siri, Nimmo, and Soto. So the Mets are stacked there. Now, moving on to the opening day rotation. Of course, Clay Holmes is getting the rock to start the season. He's going to be the opening day starter. Clay Holmes had a phenomenal spring. Nothing bad to say there. David Peterson, the number 2, he had a great spring. Nothing bad to say there. Kodai Senga, who a lot of people are looking at as the ace of this staff, is going to be the number 3 man in the rotation, and I understand that. No problem with that. He had an injury-riddled season last season, started the season late, made the one start, got hurt again, didn't come back until the NLDS and then the NLCS. He had a great NLDS shutting down the Phillies, had a porous NLCS where the Dodgers just spanked him. But bring him back. Don't put the pressure on him to be a number 1. Let him be the number 3. Get his confidence back up, and let him go full steam through the season and see how he progresses. Then we have Griffin Canning, the number 4. Canning had a good spring. And then the man who earned number 5 was Tylor Megill. I said all along that Tylor Megill was the man for the bullpen. It came down to him and Paul Blackburn for that number 5 spot, and rightfully so. Tylor Megill, who had a newfound poise and confidence to him this spring. Hopefully, it can carry over into the regular season, but McGill will be your number 5. And now we go to the opening day bullpen. So, we mentioned Paul Blackburn. That number 5 spot came down between Blackburn and McGill. Of course, Blackburn out of minor league option, so the Mets would have had to put him on waivers if for some reason he couldn't make the team. So Carlos Mendoza wants to give him a chance, bring him back slowly because he's coming back from injuries. So Blackburn starting the season in the bullpen. I have mixed feelings on this. I think that the Mets could have just parted ways with Blackburn. I think if they would have put him on waivers, they would have retained him. I don't think anybody would have picked him up, quite honestly. He's coming back from a spinal fluid leak. I think the best place for him to rehab would have been in Syracuse. The next guy in the bullpen, I think Max Kranick makes it. It's come down to him and Huascar Brazoban. Brazoban was on the staff last year, but Kranick, a heck of a spring training. I've been ranting and raving about Max Kranick all season, all spring training long. Again, Kranick really, really impressed me this spring with everything that he showed us. Kranick, a 1.46 ERA in 8 appearances this spring through 12 and a thirds innings. He struck out 15. Kranick really earned that spot. He beat out other guys such as Daniel Nunez, who's also coming back from injury. He beat out Jose Urena, and I think he beats out Huascar Brazoban to earn that spot. Then we have Danny Young, a stalwart from last season's effective bullpen. We have him, Jose Butto, and Reed Garrett. That triangle of relievers all coming back to the bullpen. No issue with any of the three. Ryan Stanek also returns in a setup role for the right-hander. One of the Mets' big acquisitions in that bullpen, a lefty specialist, is A.J. Minter, the former Atlanta Brave. He's working his way back from an injury as well, but he's healed up in time to be available if they do need him tomorrow in Houston. And then, of course, the aforementioned Edwin Diaz. No issues with this bullpen. I only have 2 points of concern. And again, not really a big concern about Edwin Diaz. The lack of velocity, the dip, if you will, kind of bothers me. But I'm optimistic that Diaz will find a way to still be the same lockdown closer that he always was. I'm just not sold on Paul Blackburn yet, but he's going to be the long relief man. If you need a reliever to go 2-3 innings, that's your guy because he has starting experience. So we'll see if he can rebound from that spinal fluid leak to become an effective long reliever. The rest of the bullpen, I'm glad that we have Nunez, Butto, and Reed Garrett all back. Those 3 guys were the staples to get through games, to get to Edwin Diaz at times last season. Ryan Stanek up and down last season, but he was more good than he was bad. And then again, I am excited, beyond excited, to see what Max Kranick can do in the regular season. As far as tomorrow's game against the Houston Astros goes, again, that game in Daikin Park, that's going to be on that's going to be at 4:10 p.m. It should be a heck of a game. The Astros, they are a team that they've had some personnel losses in the offseason. They lost Alex Bregman. He went to the Red Sox. They lost Kyle Tucker to the Cubs. They lost Justin Verlander, who was a former Met. They lost him to the Giants. And they lost their setup man, former closer Ryan Presley, who also went to the Cubs. They have signed, however, Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes, two really good guys who provide offensive firepower. Of course, Christian Walker, the former Diamondbacks first baseman, and Isaac Paredes, the former Tampa Bay Ray, who manned third base for them. So Houston still, even with the losses of Bregman and Tucker and crew and company, still boast a powerful offense. They still have Mauricio Dubon, Jeremy Pena, Yordan Alvarez, and Jose Altuve, all guys that are no slouches when they step up to the plate. So something to be worried about. But again, the Mets are ready, and I believe in our offense. They're starting Framber Valdez, and we could cue up this graphic as you see the 2024 numbers between Clay Holmes and Framber Valdez. But just remember, you got to take Holmes' numbers with a grain of salt because he started last season as the Yankees closer, and even when he lost the closer job, he still stayed in the bullpen. Holmes has not started since 2018, but he's going to start tomorrow, and I firmly believe he's going to help the Mets get the W. I am very excited for this game, and we will have reaction coverage to the Mets opening series against the Astros this weekend here on the channel. So stay tuned for that. But again, Clay Holmes versus Framber Valdez, 4:10 p.m. in Houston, and we'll have a reaction video to the series this weekend here on the Metropolitan Report YouTube channel. If you like what you see, folks, and you appreciate and enjoy the content, make sure to go below, hit subscribe. If you have any type of opinions on my feelings about Canario, my feelings about Edwin Diaz and his 95-mile-per-hour fastball, or who you think should be on the roster over who I've projected, leave a comment below. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tomorrow's the day I can't wait. Opening day, folks. Let's go Mets. I'll see you later.